Hey, what's up, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a video game review. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch, originally released on the Nintendo 3DS and the Wii U. And if you're interested in some gameplay footage, I'll have a link in the description of this video though. So, I remember playing Hyrule Warriors a while back, and 2 years ago I did a review on Hyrule Warriors Legends, a port of the Wii U version of the game brought over to the Nintendo 3DS. And at that time, I thought the game was fun. It was definitely one of the better Warrior games that I have played, and while the 3DS version wasn't perfect, it was still a fun and enjoyable game. The only real downside for that version was the fact that if you were playing on the new 3DS, the game ran well. If you played it on the old 3DS, pardon my language, the game ran like crap. So it was a really bad port at the time if you were playing it on the old 3DS though. So now with this game, it has come out now for the Nintendo Switch. Obviously with the Switch doing well, better than it was when the Wii U came out, the question is third time the charm? Is it a good having this game out the third time the charm, and how well does it compare up to, say, Fire Emblem Warriors, which I did a review of? So, well, we're going to find out. So why don't we get started with our pros and cons? Let me get my notes out. Alright, here we go. Alright, we'll start off first with the pros. The first thing to point out about the game is that all the DLCs and contents are here. Being this is the definitive edition, you're going to get everything from all of the characters and adventure maps from the Hyrule Warrior games from the 3DS and the Wii U version, along with the extra storyline that was in the 3DS version. That's the one which uses the scenarios from the Wind Waker, indeed. So all the DLCs and everything is here, though. The next thing I do want to point out is that even though this is the third time I played this game so far, it's still fun as ever. Make no mistake, this is still a Warriors game, and no matter how you look at it though, there are people who are not a big fan of the whole hack and slash of Warriors games and all that stuff. That says, it is a cut above, say, other Warrior games that I have played, next to Fire Emblem Warriors as well, so I'll get to that though. Such as the whole crafting, the dojo where you can level up your characters easily, the story, which for a Warriors game I think is really good, along with the adventure maps, which are short mini battles that take place on, some of the old Legend of Zelda maps as well, to all that kind of stuff. I did a review of most of it on my Hyrule Warriors for the Nintendo 3DS. I'll have a link to that as well. But overall, it's still fun as ever, and it's still one of the best Warriors games out there. And last but not least, the other thing to point out is that, at least based on my time and based on what I've seen so far, the game runs pretty well in console mode. It does run at a good 1080p 60 frames per second. Though, I also believe that the game does drop to a 720p 30 frames per second when in portable mode, which possibly isn't as surprising at all. After all, Fire Emblem Warriors did that, if you played that game as well on the Nintendo Switch. And for the most part, it does maintain a good 1080p 60 frames per second. For the most part, and I'll get to the cons on that though. But overall, it does run well, especially when playing the game in console mode, to be exact. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 2, our cons for Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our review of Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch. So now that I gave you my pros, why don't we get started with the cons though? And as far as the cons go, I can really only think of 2 that I could point up with. So why don't we start with the first one? Now, as I mentioned earlier in the pros, I said that the game runs at a 1080p 60 frames per second, and that certainly is a good thing. Having said that though, I did notice that there are times when the frame rate does kind of dip a little bit, even when there's a lot of enemies on the screen and so forth. I believe Digital Foundry did a video on this, although I don't know whether if those were based off of the version they picked up before a patch or update was for it or not though. But in either case, based on my time with it though, there are areas and there are times when the frame rate does kind of dip a little bit though. Does it make the game unplayable? No, and no it doesn't, and sometimes it's not, but there are times I will say it is noticeable though in certain times. Most of it may have to do with a lot of the enemies on the screen. So yes, it does run at 1080p 60 frames per second as far as I'm aware of, but there are times when the frame rate does dip a little bit. And last but not least though, I do want to point out that that Hyrule Warriors is still a fun game, and it is still remains, in my opinion, one of the best Warrior games I played. As far as say like the Warriors series, or should I call the Nintendo Warrior series, I have to say Fire Emblem Warriors does edge out Hyrule Warriors in certain areas. The first one is the visuals though. I mean, the visuals are okay for Hyrule Warriors. They're not terrible or awful or anything like that. They do the job fine, but I will say that Fire Emblem Warriors visuals are better thanks to the cel-shaded animated look. Not to mention, you have the option of playing the game at 1080p 30 frames per second or the 720p 60 frames per second though, or which to me I found the 60 frames per second to be very stable on that one. On top of that, you also have certain elements from Fire Emblem, such as the weapon wheel, which basically, you know, the sword beats axe, axe beats spear, spear beats sword, and the fact that not only you can also control your other characters and send them to attack certain enemies. You could do that in Hyrule Warriors, but with Fire Emblem Warriors, once you sent them there, they'll defeat the enemy though, where in Hyrule Warriors, you don't get the same kind of results. And last but not least, in Hyrule Warriors, when you defeat an enemy, you do pick up you do get a weapon or item. However, in Fire Emblem Warriors, same thing, except you automatically get the item and the weapon. Where in Hyrule Warriors, you basically after you defeat the enemy, you have to pick up the weapon, which isn't bad, but there are times when you may be where you may accidentally skip it by mistake, where in Fire Emblem Warriors, you automatically pick it up. So I will say Hyrule Warriors is still a good game, and I will say I like the story in Hyrule Warriors more than Fire Emblem Warriors, mostly because I'm more of a Zelda fan than a Fire Emblem fan though I don't hate the Fire Emblem series, but I feel that Fire Emblem Warriors does certain things better than Hyrule Warriors, to be exact. Overall, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition is still a good game though. It was fun when I played it back in 2016 and 2014, and it's still fun and enjoyable today though. The question is whether or not it's worth that triple dip again, and that's really going to boil down to whether you played the 3DS or the Wii U version. If you skip those versions and always wanted to try out Hyrule Warriors, it's worth another shot to get it for the Nintendo Switch. If you already beat the heck out of the game though, you'll have to debate whether or not it's worth picking it up again or not. I still enjoy the game. I still think it's one of my favorite entries in the Warrior series, even though Fire Emblem Warriors does certain things a little bit better. And if you missed it out the first time, I would say give it a go the second time, assuming you're a fan of the Warrior series or not. And here's to hoping though that if they do a Hyrule Warriors 2, I would be open for them to do that, along with a Fire Emblem Warriors 2 as well. Plus, if they do any other Nintendo Warriors games, I would be open to the idea of, say, a Mario Warriors game. I'm sure they could figure how that one could work. Donkey Kong Warriors game, a Golden Sun Warriors game. But one that I think could work in a Warrior formula if they were able to execute it well would be one based off the Xenoblade Chronicles series, a Xenoblade Warriors game as well. So overall, good game indeed. Whether or not it's worth the triple dip is going to be from your preference and your perspective. Okay, this concludes this review of Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. Almost got the name wrong. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts of Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition? Is it worth the triple dip, though? Do you think it's worth picking it up a third time? Or do you think you know what? I played the Wii U or the 3DS or both those versions. I really don't see it worth picking it up again. Do you like this one better than Fire Emblem Warriors, or do you think Fire Emblem Warriors is better than Hyrule Warriors, to be exact? Do you agree with my review? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Hope you hit that like button. I would appreciate it, and I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that will be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!